Just another day on the TF2 battlefield, am I right? What? Joking aside, I must express how happy I was to see best pony for me, Twilight, finally getting her chance to do a friendship mission. Even more so, she was paired up with Fluttershy, something I've not seen before, which is kinda ironic when you consider both ponies are in fact introverted, Twilight being less so when she's surrounded by her thirst for knowledge, bookkeeping, as well as proving to her friends, as well as to herself, that she is the princess of friendship, whereas Fluttershy is more open when she's around animals. But the two seem to not overwhelm each other in most interests, so this leads to less tension between their friendship. With, of course, Twilight's over-exaggerated need to come prepared, of course. Come on, sweetie, you can do it. Or, if you can't, ask Twilight for help? Much better! So when they attempt to address the friendship problem at the new destination of a valley between two peaks, one would think they have it under control. I do know for a fact this episode's plot is based off a true, tragic Western event that occurred several decades ago, and just about every pony has already addressed this factor. So I would simply like to address how Twilight and Fluttershy go about the dispute. It's quite unknown what caused the fighting in the first place between the two rivalry neighbors, the Hooffields and McColts, but it's clear that this has been going on in their families for a few generations. The opposites running clear throughout. The Hooffields were good at farming and growing food, while the McColts were superior in building and establishing settlements. It was a clear indicator the two needed each other, but their own stubbornness and pride kept them at bay. Twilight, though, had a very calm and organized way of going about it. She prepped herself for any sort of friendship disagreement in the best of her ability, and I gotta say, I liked how she first tackled the problem. 1, asking them not to fight long enough so she can understand what each party did to one another. 2, trying to get them to meet in a neutral location to talk out their problems, and finally 3, to understand the real root of the problem. All were pretty good ideas to start with such an issue. Surprisingly enough, even the two families had forgotten what their fight was about, only that they were insisting that one of them would win and come out on top, regardless of the consequences. Twilight did hold herself strong when trying to get through the problem and help them to work things out. She was patient, kind, and even understanding. The poor pony even got her flank kissed by a flying tomato, and she still didn't lose her resolve. In fact, by the time the fighting escalated, she had all but sat to the side, wondering what she could have done better, and that's where Fluttershy comes in to shine. She may have only been concerned about the animals and the environment, but that is what was really suffering the most throughout the fighting. The valley itself was a luscious place, warm and full of food plentiful for the inhabitants before the feud began. Even the Hooffields and McColts' ancestors recognized this and swore to protect it. The only thing that went wrong was agreeing on how to go about it. Rather than talk it out, sadly, it escalated to a feud, and it would last through many family generations. In the result, the entire valley suffered. All this from the help of the fact that Fluttershy understood animals, and they in turn knew what was causing the problem. Behold the mighty morphin powers of the Alicorn! Probably the best highlight of the episode for me was putting Twilight's Alicorn abilities into practice to help freeze a battle long enough for Fluttershy to explain the dispute. It was using both their skills to their advantage to make the two parties see that their fighting was causing destruction amongst the habitat and its animals. I'd even say this reminds me of a news story back from 1988 of Operation Breakthrough. The operation in itself was a story about 3 whales that were trapped in the ice up in Point Barrow, Alaska. Unable to escape from under the ice, with only one surface to breathe out of, the whales were doomed if it weren't for the efforts of the US scientists and journalists who spread the news of the tale. Ultimately, though, despite their efforts of drilling a trench through the ice for them to escape to open sea, they couldn't break through a large barricade. Their last option was to grind their teeth, and for the sake of the whales, put away former disputes and call for help of the Soviet Union's tankers that were in the area. It was one of those rare moments in history that two nations would put aside their differences to help save these gentle giants in a time of need. Stories like these always warm my heart, and I have to say the moral here strikes me as very moving. If we could just put aside our differences for the greater good of others, the world would become a better place. I'd happily give this episode an 8 out of 10. It was well thought out, the moral was stuck, and above all else, it was merely just getting along. Until then, everybody, I am Lightning Bliss. Y'all darn keep an eye out for them rainbows now. They'll make you smile, darn tootin'.